Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to this week's edition of the Digital Shop Talk Radio. It's episode 52. That means a full year. Woo, woo, woo.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. And I couldn't think of two better guys to have on my annual anniversary show than Frank Scandura from Frank's European in Las Vegas, Nevada, and David Earp from Village Transmission in Edmonds, Washington. And we're going to be talking about culture building. Why? Well, a couple reasons. First, we just came off of an awesome digital shop conference where we had the master of culture right here with a breakout. Frank Scandura gave a fantastic breakout. And, you know, we really want to talk about, and it's a recurring theme on this show, right, is that you need to develop the foundations, and this is exactly how you do it. So we're going to be talking about, Frank's going to give you a sneak peek. For those of you who didn't make it out to Digital Shop Conference, we're going to be talking about galvanizing your culture using shop meetings. And I don't want to steal Frank's thunder on his awesome tagline, so I'll let him bring it to you yourself. Welcome, Frank Scandura. Welcome, Dave Earp.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
So let's talk a little bit about it. I mean, it sounds like you guys kind of came together in the, you know, in the knowledge fountain that was the Digital Shop Conference out there. And Dave, you had some good takeaways from Frank's breakout, I take it?
Absolutely. You know, anytime you go to a meeting like this, whether it's an ATI meeting, you know, management success, what have you, any one of those meetings, sometimes the best takeaways are in the elevator. You know, there's so many different things that you gather information in these meetings, but Frank's course struck me as something you know, high on my list that I need to implement immediately when I get back. And I'm looking forward to regular shop meetings, not shop meetings like Frank says, and which is currently what I'm doing. I'm calling meetings, right. Well, previously calling meetings when they were desperately needed. And I think that Frank and I would agree that we need to be more proactive as far as that's concerned, because it can alleviate a lot of stresses around the shop that otherwise may not get mentioned.
Yeah, so that's what you were doing. You're just kind of, what were you, just having meetings whenever you had something to flame them about, or they weren't scheduled at all?
Or policy changes, you know, workflow changes. Hey, we need to do things this way. But the problem with that, and I'm sure you all would agree, is it can't be a one and done, right? You can't have that meeting and implement something new and expect it to happen on the first time. It will never happen. You need to stay on top of it consistently to make sure that the implementation follows through.
Yeah, no, and that's, you know, that's critical, right? It's, you got to set that muscle memory in. I know a guy that tells me about muscle memory on a daily basis right here might have some opinion about that. Sit down here, buddy. We got Uwe Kleinschmidt.
Morning.
Our founder, gracing us on Digital Shop Talk Radio. Say hi. We got Frank and
Frank.
Morning, Dave.
So we were just talking about, you know, Frank's breakout and Dave's experience there when he came out for Digital Shop Conference. And, you know, now he's going to take it and implement it into his shop on a regular basis. And you know, he was just telling us he was, you know, having meetings only when necessary in the past. So hopefully we're going to have a great case study and follow up here to see the implementation and the results of that. You're a fan of regular meetings. Why don't you give us, you know, your opinion on how that fits into the creating a strong culture?
So for us, it's really important also for our business, right, to stay on top of things. I can tell you there are software development theories very successfully implemented where the team meets every day in the morning. They call it a stand-up. Don't make it longer than 15 minutes. Go around the group of people quickly, what's on for the day, what are the results to be expected for the day, and then adjourn and come back the next morning. So that creates a cadence everybody gets used to, and it's well appreciated by most of them after a while, because you probably experience the same. Why do we need to meet? I have enough stuff to do. Right? That's the normal argument not to show up.
That's every time. And in the breakout, and I talked about this, was, and the person who's the quietest in the group meeting is usually the one with the most to say.
Right.
You've got to find a way to give them the safety and the quiet to come forward, to know that it's okay to say something, because it never ceases to amaze me when I get somebody to start to open up and start to talk. Some of the first things they'll say is, well, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, or I don't want anybody mad at me. And that's my favorite statement. Well, I don't want so-and-so mad at me. I says, okay, well, they could be mad or I could be mad. Pick. Right. So yeah, very, very important to have. And what Dave, I hope you get a chance to talk about, is starting to do this just to bring that consistency. And for you shop owners who have tried to have regular meetings and it's awkward and it's uncomfortable and nobody had anything to say, tough. Got to do it. You have to show consistency, and you have to break out of your own comfort zone and make this happen. So maybe Dave could say something about that. What was that like for you when you made the decision to
Well,
start?
the first thing I want to say is, why does a football team huddle up?
Exactly.
Because they need to know the play. So
Good.
Run more profit on one. Ready, break.
yeah, but yeah, consistency is key. That's one of the things I have contemplated. Weekly shop meeting, bi-weekly shop meeting, morning huddles. I think it's all good. I don't think that too much could be a bad thing. I think the more the better. Especially for me, I feel like trying to implement, well, and I'm sure a lot of shop owners would feel the same way, but anytime you implement something new, you've got to stay on top of it. It will not happen overnight. I think I forget what the statistics was, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's 5 times before they finally get that muscle memory. So I could see the benefit of morning huddle, especially for the day, and at minimum weekly shop meetings, I think would be key.
Yeah, and when you're implementing something that's complex or it's a big process change, then maybe the stand-ups, a daily little 5-minute, like you said, to huddle up real quick, ready, break. And then when you need to, maybe a more formal hour-long session or whatever with the group on a weekly basis until that memory gets established. Then you can always throttle it back to what fits the operation and the need, right?
Yeah, and I don't think you have to include necessarily the whole shop all at once either. You can take part of your staff, your service advisor, and have a quick huddle with them, and then maybe break out, grab the text, and have a quick huddle with them. It doesn't necessarily have to be all inclusive.
Yeah, run some offensive drills, run some defensive drills.
Yeah, exactly. You could use the football analogy all day long.
All day long. All day long. But you got to do to win, not get injured. So Frankie, for folks that are looking to implement that, because again, like I was saying in the open, it really is about fundamentals. We want to get to some of these bigger concepts that we're talking about, advancing education of the motorist research time, really developing, inspection programs and digital assets that convert, right? That add to that ROI, but you got to have the foundation established first. So for somebody who's looking to start a shop meeting, maybe they're just doing it like what Dave's saying is, meet whenever we have something to yell about, right? How do they transition and how do they get into a groove of having a regular reoccurring meeting? And I'm sorry, and one more thing, and how do they structure that, right? What are the top components that they should be talking about every week?
And that's really the key, right? It's not a matter of just showing up and says, well, what do you want to talk about? Right? Because that's not the way it's going to work. So I had a 7-step form, 7 items you can do at every single meeting, and understanding that this kind of stuff in my world is written in pencil. So it's not carved in stone. This is the only thing we can do. We have to, don't fit in this little box, right? Thinking outside the box is one of my favorite things to do. So here they are real quick. Success story, share the good news. Do that first. Shop business, what's going on? Is there vacation time? Dave was saying, equipment needs and things like that.
Yeah.
Previous week performance, going over the goals. What are the goals of the shop? It never ceases to amaze me when the shop owner sets goals and then gets mad that nobody met the goals, but nobody knew the goals. And nobody knew how we're going to get there. Nobody knew what we're going to do, right? Any obstacles in reaching those goals. So right now we're down a tech. I can't make my goals of production without all the production people. So that needs to be taken into consideration. Continuous improvement, taking suggestions from the crowd. So important. And number 7, review continuous improvement ideas. Don't talk about it in one meeting and forget to follow up in the next. Without that follow up, there's a disconnect, right? Human nature. And I told this story when we first started doing digital inspections. I handed everybody a tablet. I said, do digital inspections, and I walked away. They looked at it like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? So having that follow up and doing that that review, saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do it with. This is how we're going to do it. And then here's how we're going to measure it, right? Because you can't fix what you can't measure. And that's what got me on board initially. And I don't know if you remember, we had those talks where to look at those numbers and to know in real time what we're doing is not the same as I told everybody to inspect every car. They agreed to inspect every car, but then the numbers show 40%. Whoa. You told me you were going to do this. Or we agreed to send all the inspections and the numbers show, 37%. Whoa. What happened here? Of course, those of you who are starting to have these metrics initially have to get over the hurdle of, well, it was the technology. Couldn't have been working correctly because, boss, I would always, send everything out. So being consistent and having those, this is what we're going to do, reviewing, how's it working? Perfect example, technician one time told us, these tablets don't work. They don't work. Okay, let me pull you aside. And I said to him, there's thousands of technicians all over the country doing digital inspections on these tablets. Why doesn't it work for you? I can't type with my thumbs. Problem solved for $20 to get a Bluetooth keyboard for him to use on his tablet. So it's diving in and having those discussions and figuring out what's your obstacle. And Uwe is famous for, and it's always perfect, the question behind the question, right? Because us shop owners will get on Facebook and blurt out a 17 paragraph, why doesn't it do this? And when you ask why do you need it to do that? Okay, it already does it if you did this. Oh, okay, thanks for letting me know. How many times does that happen? So that's all part of that kind of communication in that meeting stuff.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
How long did it take you, Frank, until one of your technicians openly talked about a suggestion or a problem in the meeting?
Well, I've been doing meetings for so long, I don't know that I can honestly answer that, but it's because it's our open forum, we allow it. And I do. So
how long does it take for the new guy to start talking up?
Well, they usually are very vocal in the beginning.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So
that's good.
It's how you hold your meetings, right? If somebody says, hey, why don't we XYZ? And you go, well, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Who else has an idea? Nobody's going to, right? So
hey, Dave, is that how your meetings are going, buddy?
Yeah, I try not to be that rough on them. I don't need anybody walking out on me. Texts are too hard to come by.
Yeah, man.
But no, I try to honestly take into consideration anything that anybody says. Whether or not I'm going to implement it, that's a totally different thing. But I want as much feedback as possible to help me make the shop a better place.
Yeah, and it's pretty simple, right? You have to respect the feedback so you don't mock it and say, throw it out of hand. And then, they have to see something. It might not be everything that they were, on their wish list, but there was some change. There was some implementation of those ideas. Then after that, here you come. You better put your boots on because you're going to be shoveling.
Yeah, and if you don't listen to them and you don't take what they say into consideration, then they're not going to talk in the meetings.
Yeah.
What do they have to talk about?
Yes.
They're just going to sit there and listen to what you have to say. And that's not a meeting. That's a beating.
Yeah, exactly. That's a beating. And then that, that's the opposite of what you're trying to establish from a cultural perspective, because you just have a bunch of people waiting around with no responsibility, waiting to be told what to do so they can do what you told them to do, right? It's always on you. And so if you can get that input, well, now all of a sudden it's we. It becomes us. And we're all accountable, right? And we're all pulling, we're all rowing the same way.
So let me even dive deeper into that because this happens to me. And if it happens to me, it's probably happening to somebody else. When you do hear a suggestion, and I'm up to here with responsibilities and things I'm trying to accomplish and things that I have going on, sometimes I can't receive that suggestion. And I have to be very, very specific and say, okay, yeah, let me give that some thought, because my initial reaction is there's no way. But like Dave said, once you dig into it a little bit, you give yourself a chance to breathe and really think about it. Maybe the whole thing's not right, but you can give value to a part of it. And I can actually say, okay, I heard what you said. What are some ways that we can do something close to that? And then it really gives value to your people around you.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And so Dave, what are you looking at from from an implementation perspective? Are you planning on having them bi-weekly, every Friday? What's the plan there for your rollout?
So the rollout is going to be a new year meeting. So it's going to be a big meeting. It's going to have the goals, how we're going to get there, everything that Frank mentioned, pretty much those top 7 items. It's going to be probably an hour-long meeting.
Yeah.
Cover a lot of stuff. And then bi-weekly is my plan after that to follow up on all of those things initially talked about in the big meeting at the beginning of the year.
Good for you.
That's awesome. Yep. Yeah, and so kick it off with a blast. So for everybody who's looking to do the same thing, I mean, that's a great way to open the door, right? Is you got a reason to meet. It's a new year. Here's our goals for the year. Here's our plan. Structure it like Frank said, because then you're covering all the important stuff. What's important to you, but also what's important to your crew. And that's how you build culture, because you got to care about what's important on both sides, right?
Yeah, definitely. Don't forget to include what's in it for them, right?
Yeah, exactly. That has to be focused in fundamental, right? And it's first. And then we could kind of talk about, here's the stuff where it's going to affect the both of us, and there's some give and take. And then if you need to, you can talk about the stuff that you guys got to do, right? That you can, and roll it downhill that way. But as you go, you're establishing goals. You set goals, get the input, confirm that they agree that the goal is achievable, although difficult, and that they're going to commit to doing it. And then after that, it's just, your meetings become a scoreboard, right? And hopefully we're talking about victories.
And then measuring it, right? Measure the commitment.
Yeah,
right.
There in the business control panel, right?
Yeah.
Document it in the business control panel and
Yep.
show that in relation to where they are in performance to their goal, positive trends or positive, content and communication inside of that meeting. And you should come out with very, motivated staff to continue to have success.
It's a suggestion I might have is, if you really make a change in your culture, then the first meeting is important. And as with the digital inspections, if you can provide a quick win, everybody is super excited, right? So if you have, for example, a technician came up to you outside of the meeting and asked for, I don't know, a new equipment or whatever else which improved the shop, and you use that as an example in the first meeting, I want to do more of this, right? Then everybody might be excited to follow that one technician's example.
So true. Yep.
So quick wins is really important.
Yeah, just be careful what you ask for. Usually when you ask for it, you're gonna get a lot of it. You're buying a lot of equipment. we do the same thing, right? In our meetings, sometimes they can become, very, how should I say it? Full of a lot of wishing and dreaming. And then, it's good to have somebody who works on the structure to rein us all back into reality.
Hope is not a good strategy.
That's right.
Right.
We've heard that a few times around here.
It's like a customer saying, well, I hope it's not expensive to fix my car. It's not a good plan. Let's find out what's going on.
Yeah. Well, maybe if I just drive it longer, it'll fix itself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Another element of this, the weekly shop meetings are really great for the entire team. Service advisors have got to have morning huddles with their techs. 5-10 minutes, lay out the day. I have a meeting with each service advisor, shop foreman, and my quality control technician. We go over all the open ROs. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Where's the parts? What's going? Have we test driven this car? Have we verified the complaint? And these little meetings help bring the bigger meeting together. And I'm actually started under about I'd like to have a technician spend a couple hours on the front counter in the morning. I just want you to stand there and watch what happens. And I want to have a technician spend a few minutes in our morning huddles to understand, the pressure that goes on dealing with cars that are here for 3, 4, 5 days and we don't have an answer on. Because, I got to feed my family. I got to do this tranny service and brake job. I can't do that check engine light. I'm going to die if you make me do that this morning. So these are all the things that all come together, make it all happen.
So Frank, if you look back, I mean, you have been doing meetings for years now, right?
Yes, sir.
What is there anything you would have done differently if you could roll back time?
I think it's no, and I'll tell you why, because I needed to learn, and it helped me. All right, let's back up even further. So I've trained to do speaking and presenting, and because that's what I want to do, and it's helped me in my meetings to conduct the meeting from a almost same way I present, like I did for the breakout and auto vitals, right? I want to bring a little humor, a little side jokes, a little real life experience, things that I've experienced in my life. This is why I say the things I say. This is why we do the things we do. We had a customer come in during our meeting. Good, nice, great guy, long time customer. I said, come on in. Why don't you sit and hear it? And we're talking about integrity and our mission statement and things like that.
That's awesome.
And I turned to him and I said, Jerry, do we deliver? And he literally got real emotional. Says, Frank, my life's a train wreck except when it comes to my car. and that was really important for the team to hear, right? Because it's not just me bloviating all the time. Oh, stop, do, make, and this is real. We have an effect on people. And it's real, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. And I'm a little disappointed Ford stole my tagline. Franks doesn't raise the bar, Franks sets the bar.
Nice.
And when we talk to people, about doing different marketing things, they go, well, who's your competition? Here's my standard 10 questions that I don't know what else to do, so I'm going to ask you that. I am my competition, because if I'm not aware of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, I'm going to lose the game.
Nice. Frank plays golf. So Dave, what's the purpose? I mean, what are you putting these? Of course, everybody wants better culture, and working on culture is always it's a never-ending task and journey that we take. But I mean, from a goals perspective, what are you looking to improve by implementing these meetings?
Well, ultimately for me, I hate to say that it boils down to money, but we have sales goals that we would like to achieve. Okay.
Yeah,
in order to achieve those goals, we need to become more efficient. And that's the roadmap that I'm going to lay, the groundwork I'm going to lay down for my technician. Or my crew, I should say. This is the goal that we want to hit this year, this month, this week. And this is how we're going to get there. And, I'm going to do the math for them and tell them that, look, if you guys could just produce one more hour a day, this is what it looks like over the course of the year. And it blows their mind when you start doing the math on little things like that.
Awesome.
So that's kind of what I'm going to do, is lay the groundwork for the year, and then have weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings with them and show them how we've performed, and whether good job, we've hit those goals, or what do we need to do differently here to get there.
No, that's awesome, right? Because it's kind of hard to measure culture, right? How do you measure culture? Well, you measure it in those incremental improvements. Teamwork makes the dream work. Now we communicate better together. We become more efficient. We become more productive. And then ultimately you see it, in the revenue numbers, right? Because, hey, there's less waste, there's less, cost, there's less, mistakes, there's, more, like you said, producing one more hour a day, and how that starts to add up. And so if you're producing one more hour a day and you're kind of reducing your cost by, 1-2% a day, wow, right? Then it has a huge impact. And that's where you kind of get that hockey stick sometimes in your revenue figures. And it just all comes together, right? That's what we like to say. We're gelling, right?
Atomic Habits is a great book that speaks to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Where I can't get from, all right, we did 2.7 last year. I can't get to 5 million this year, but I can get to 2.8. I can get to 2.9. I can get to 3. I can get to 3.1 and work my way, because a $5 million a year company is my goal.
Yep.
And so the same thing with our techs and our team. If we say, look, I want to do 3 million this year, and I wait to the beginning of next year to say, well, you guys all suck because we didn't make it. And Dave, you're 100% right. You've got to break it down to here's what it looks like for the year, the month, the week, and the day. And then break it down even further. How many cars does each service advisor need to bring in each day based on our averages to make it happen?
Make it real.
Make it real. Right.
Not every day is a success, but then you could just, if you break it down into those small chunks, then I just got to do half an hour more tomorrow to get back on track. Right.
Yes.
Not, I got to make up 2 months of revenue in the last 30 days of the year or something like that. Right. No way.
All of a sudden it's attainable, right?
Yes.
It's like, I learned that also the hard way, right? Running a marathon, you think that's crazy.
It is
26 miles. Right. And then if you break it down, here's the next aid station, here's the next landmark, all of a sudden, let's try. Right?
Yeah. And it becomes reality.
Yeah.
So not to take anything away from technicians, you guys are incredible. I started my life as a technician, but y'all can't see past your next paycheck.
Sure.
Right. So, that's why
the position in your business, right?
Yeah. And that's why it's so important for them to understand breaking it down instead of this big, giant monster they can't get their head around. They have to see, it's not uncommon for a guy to flag 50, 55, 60, 65 hours week after week after week. And that 1 week he hits 30 hours, his family's going to starve. Right. So it's really important to help with the efficiencies, the productivity, spreading it out, making sure we're keeping things even, Stephen.
Yeah, just keeping them in the game, right? If they're considered and if they're part of the conversation, well, then it's not just pointing at you. It's not all your fault. It's our fault, and it's or it's our opportunity, really, because that's exactly how you need to think about challenges in your business. Is there opportunities? It's opportunity for us to work together more closely, to share ideas, to collaborate, to put in the effort. And, because rarely is it, I just need better AdWords or marketing. That's not what's missing in your business. What's missing in your business is exactly what we're talking about today. And that's the culture and teamwork and being able to see past that paycheck.
Yep.
That's fantastic. So when's the big kickoff, Dave?
Thursday.
Nice.
Thursday at noon is the big meeting. And I've been preparing for this since I got back. When we flew in, we had a huge snowstorm and it kind of disrupted everything for a week or so, but we're past that now. And I've been just building on this meeting, building, creating a vision of where we want to go for 2020 and convey that vision to my staff and stick with it consistently throughout the year. And we'll see where we end up at the end of the year. I've got big goals this year that I want to meet, and I'm excited to achieve them.
No, that's awesome, buddy. Yeah, that is awesome. We're really excited for you. Can't wait to hear the outcomes, man, and have you back on talking about how those meetings are progressing and really talk about the results, right? Where we can start to see the needle move and the measurable. And anybody else that's out there is wanting to get started, bring it onto Facebook, start a conversation up there. We'd love to hear how your thoughts and ideas on how you're implementing your annual meeting. And then your follow-up weeklies or bi-weeklies, however you're going to run it, and what the results are for you. Matter of fact, we might even get you to come on air and talk to Dave and Frank and Uwe and share your story with us.
And if they go to Facebook, that 7 items for your shop meeting agenda, I call it, is available on the Facebook page for anybody who wants it. So,
thanks, Frankie. That's awesome.
Frankie.
Yeah, so right there, just go into the Facebook thread and the digital shop talk, and then you can copy those down and implement them, because it's a great structure, and then just fine tune it and measure it, and each week think about how you can improve it. And then pretty soon you get to, book clubs and like Russ and some of the other shops are implementing. And I mean, you saw that amazing charity work they're doing, coming together on Saturdays to do community service and things like that. Not only does that, it's priceless for your culture internally, but look at what a great community, reputation wise and stuff like that you're doing. And it's just fantastic.
Great PR.
Think of others first and they'll think of you. Right? It'll all come back to you. So that's fantastic. So Dustin, what are we doing next week? And when are we going to have these guys on for a follow-up?
It's already done.
Yeah.
Follow up, we'll probably do that in about 3 months. We're going to look towards March for that, probably March or April to get that, just so we can get some really tangible, good stories, get, 6, 7, 8 meetings underneath your belt or more, Dave, and kind of get that back in there. So, but yeah, we'll get both these guys back on and talk about what's going on, and maybe Frank can tell us what's going on with his coaching stuff too, and his foray into that. Next week, we're going to have Christoph Schofer back on.
Oh, nice.
From Auburn Euro Motors. Yeah, I mean, so he's the interesting guy, right, who kind of had it for a while, then just kind of made a concerted effort one day, hey, I'm going to make this thing work. And he did. So he's going to kind of talk about, post-implementation, how to kind of take the next step after he's done implementation. Now he kind of feels he's doing good with that. Where do you go from there? So he's going to kind of guide us through that.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Christoph's a young, savvy operator, right? He was the guy, if you remember, he was running his shop off a generator while the hills were on fire behind him, and he was still, I think he was the only guy open. He's up in Auburn, California, right? So he was serving the community, man, and doing it off of a generator and making it happen. So really bright guy, really looking forward to having Christoph back on. That's fantastic. Thank you, Dustin. Looking forward to that. And until then, that's going to be 10 a.m. Wednesdays, Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're on the, streaming live on our Facebook forum. So if you, set yourself a bookmark. And another thing, what we found out is if you subscribe to that podcast, you get an alert and then you don't miss it. So that's important too. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode, because they come at you fast and furious, because we're here to help you make more money in 2020. And give a big round of applause and thank you to Frank Scandura and Dave Earp for coming on and sharing some of their wisdom and expertise, and Uwe Kleinschmidt for doing a drive-by with us today, coming by and sharing some of his insights. Really appreciate it, guys. Until next Wednesday, get out and make some money. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you then.